The best thing about performing this particular piece with this particular orchestra is that I first sang with the American Symphony in 1995. So the best thing is singing with old friends and making new friends. In fact, this summer we got to do the piece in Boston, which is absolutely wonderful. I've never sung in Boston before, and I get to sing it with one of my favorite friends of all time, Mr. Tim Culver. And then we got to hang out with Ben Zander at Ben Zander's house. And the especially nice part was getting to hang out with Maestro Wilkins in a very relaxed setting. So we got to learn about him growing up, him as an oboist, him as a kid, and his influence with Ben Zander. And it was just really great to spend that time, all of us just hanging out, talking about everything from politics to sports to food to wine to everything. It was just a really wonderful thing. And I'd say the second best thing is getting to perform the piece twice, because very often when you do these new works, you get to do it one shot. So we get to do this piece a second time, which is really wonderful for us. I think one of the main things to listen for is that there's dialogue in this piece as opposed to just singing. So the dialogue really trains us actors, or teaches us actors, that we have to be voice actors as well as singing actors. So it's really important to listen to the dialogue. Also, the orchestral music does a lot of tone painting. You can hear the waves rolling along, as well as when you hear when the big whale enters, how the music changes and how the music really sets the attitude for the characters, and how Ahab goes from being calm to committed to despair to utter resignation. And the orchestra's part really shows that all throughout the piece. The music itself is extremely challenging. In fact, I can only think of one other piece that I've ever done which has been more difficult than this, and it was actually this same summer, the Bernstein Celebration. I did a Bernstein piece which was extremely challenging. The notes, you have to really sit down at a piano, pluck them out, make sure you know what's happening. If you were to look at my score, you'd see all kinds of different colors and arrows pointing from one measure to 5 measures before to find the pitch. Because normally you can play a chord and then find your pitch from that. But when you play the chord that's written, very often your note is not in that chord anywhere, and it makes it extremely challenging. So the music itself, I would say, is the most challenging part. The other challenging part is, especially when you're singing in English to an English-speaking audience, to make sure that you tell the story. You're just not singing notes, you're just not singing words. You have to really commit to the text and commit to the story, and very often we singers get hung up with making everything a beautiful sound, and a lot of times you have to sacrifice the beauty of the sound to emphasize a particular word or phrase. My favorite moments in this particular piece are the times when Ahab gets to sing softly. He gets very introspective, and we think of Ahab's character as always being didactic, preaching, going crazy after the whale, and there are a few points, especially one moment in the end with Starbuck, where he really sings beautifully and shows his respect for Starbuck and the journey that they're on together, and how if he fails, it would be not a total failure for life, but he's going to be committed with knowing that he might fail. And he sings a beautiful phrase in the end of it, which is soft and beautiful. Now, of course, it ends back with the total resignation, and if I'm going down, I'm going down fighting, which is great to listen for. I do a lot of work online and doing some research. I find different references to the story of Moby-Dick, different references to the different characters. Then I learn the part myself, being very particular about the music, plunking out everything. And then after I've learned it, I go and listen to other recordings and see how my interpretation relates to someone else's interpretation. I want to stress the point that, never listen to recordings for note accuracy, because you find a lot of things that are wrong in the score when you pluck it out. So I'll always go at doing my part first, then going to listen to other recordings to find out if their interpretation matched my interpretation or how close we were. But the biggest thing I do is to sing everything for my biggest fan and my biggest critic, my wife Sue. Especially when I'm doing English text, I will just read the text without the music and make sure that she is getting the intent of the drama, that I'm not just reading words for her. And then I sing different portions of it and ask her about technical things. Are you still getting the diction? Are you still getting, was that a straight tone? Was that legato enough? And then my favorite comment of hers ever, when I'm singing something, she says, Brian, are you getting paid to sing the consonants or just the vowels? Because I'm getting a lot of beautiful vowels, but not enough consonants. But that's what you need. You need the truth, you need to know, and then when you hear that, that just makes your performance better. And she comes to everything. So it's wonderful having her in my corner all the time.